The Carolina Panthers could be looking to trade running back Christian McCaffrey. What would it take to get him to Philadelphia? Vic Fangio is consulting the Eagles defense, and the Eagles have fallen out of the NFL power rankings. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome into the Thomas Mott Show on a Tuesday, the show where we go National Football League, Philadelphia Eagles, and combine them together to give you guys everything you need for your drive to or from work regarding your favorite football team or the NFL in general. And there's a lot of talk today about Christian McCaffrey and the Carolina Panthers. Now, we're not going to focus in on the firing of Matt Rhule, although as a former Baylor Bear, it is sad to see Matt Rhule be fired, albeit worth it. He was not good as a head coach. But now the idea of a flash sale, of a great purge in Carolina comes to the forefront. And the Eagles, well, they've been tied to running backs in the past. Christian McCaffrey is seemingly on the trade block. What would it look like to go ahead and get a deal done? Now, I want to preface this. There is no concrete evidence or hard reporting from Big J journalists saying, oh, the Eagles are for sure going to be in on Christian McCaffrey. It's not out there, at least as of filming this video early on a Tuesday morning, filming the show for you guys. But let's just try and piece together what it would actually take in terms of cost, in terms of draft capital, in terms of salary cap, in terms of future contracts. What would it look like to go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey on the Eagles and do kind of a Jay Ajayi type trade to maybe bolster this run game for a deep playoff and maybe Super Bowl run? Before we start, make sure to thumbs up. You know YouTube loves the thumbs up video, and if you're new to the Thomas Mott Show, we appreciate you guys, but a lot aren't subscribed, so if you guys want to help the show grow, go ahead and subscribe. Okay. This reporting all comes via yesterday. There's a great article on Bleacher Report having all the different tweets from all the NFL insiders up on your screen right now. Here is where the sourcing comes from. Quote from Jay Glazer: teams will now be calling the Panthers trying to trade for some of their players as they hope Carolina will look to stockpile picks as they rebuild. Jason Lockenforth said the Panthers will have to eat salary to move guys like CMC and Robbie Anderson, and the expectation around the industry, as reported previously in the Washington Post, is that they will be very willing to do just that. Joe Person, who works for, I think he's a Panther beat writer, says, quote, Bills reached out to Panthers about Christian McCaffrey during this offseason as well. And then Tom Pelissero refuted that, but still kind of throws fire, or I should say, adds fuel to the fire and says, quote, the Panthers haven't had trade talks about Christian McCaffrey with the Bills or any other team this season. Per source, Carolina already paid most of his $8.6 million salary in a bonus. Every team will be working the phones the next few weeks, but nothing in the works for CMC. And so as the trade deadline looms, about 3 weeks away from that, it happens in week 8, this is a deal I expect to get done somewhere in the National Football League. It's no surprise Super Bowl contenders like the Bills, who have a very porous run game, not a great run game, would be looking for CMC to kind of go all in on a Super Bowl run. So that got me thinking, has anyone even mentioned Philadelphia, right? Would I be the first person to say, Christian McCaffrey and the Philadelphia Eagles? Well, CBS Sports does have an article here that does mention them. We'll at least read you what they say about that before getting into trade compensation. Here it is, quote, word on the street is the Eagles would have happily taken McCaffrey had he lasted to their first round pick in 2017. Really? I don't remember that. I've never heard that, but I could be wrong. That year, manager Howie Roseman bought into the team's Super Bowl aspirations and dealt a pick for then Dolphins running back Jay Ajayi at the deadline, proving he's willing to rent a starter if the time is right. Adding CMC would put a dent in Miles Sanders' workload as he approaches free agency, but it makes sense otherwise. Considering how much the Eagles lean on the run, McCaffrey lined up to Jalen Hurts would give Philadelphia one of the most unpredictable backfields in the league. True. I like Miles Sanders. I think he's played great this year. He's playing himself into a new deal, but you would upgrade at running back with Christian McCaffrey. His just overall ability would be undeniable and unbelievable, but let's hold off on that here just 1 second. So the question now becomes, okay, if Howie wanted to make a deal, let's put on our Howie season caps and say, what would it look like? Well, there's a good article here from SportsNot giving you some examples of Christian McCaffrey trades, and I think this one with the 49ers at least gives you an idea of the compensation. Panthers get Elijah Mitchell, that's the Niners starting running back when healthy, a 2022 second, and a 2023 second-round draft picks. So let's just say that's it. Or maybe it's a first-round draft pick and a player, which I would not do, but let's just make this be kind of the framework of a deal. So let's just say, I don't know, Miles Sanders, a 2022 second and a 2022 second and a 2023 third. So a second this year, a second next year. Would that, tickle your fancy? Would you do it? The example here is to show you it's a lot. It's a lot to go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey. Now that might tank, right? The stock price of Christian McCaffrey, now that every team knows that the Panthers are tanking, as we'll see, could be going down. Let me offer you this. Would you give a second round draft pick next year and a player, let's just say Miles Sanders, for Christian McCaffrey? Would you do it? I don't know if I would. I really don't know if I would. And it's not because I don't think Christian McCaffrey is great. There's one thing holding me back from going all in on getting Christian McCaffrey, and we go over here to the Sport Track website to show you exactly what that is. His contract. He's in a 4-year, $64 million deal that Carolina gave him back in 2020. Now, this year, it makes a ton of sense because your overall cap hit is about $8.75 million. For elite running back, that's fine. Here's where the problem is. Yes, there's a potential out here at 3 years and $39 million, but if you keep him on the roster next year, without restructuring his contract, your cap hit is $19 million. For a running back, for an often injured running back. And I know Christian McCaffrey is one of the best backs, if not the best back in the league when healthy, but when has he played 17 games? 19.5 million this year, next year. 2024, 19.5 million. 2025, you're on the hook for $15 million. That's where you have to put your little foot down and pump the brakes and say, okay, if you were to go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey, sure, a second-round draft pick and a player, maybe he's worth it. But you got to restructure this deal. There is no way in hell I would ever consider getting Christian McCaffrey if you're telling me you have to pay him, $19.5 million in 2023? Are you crazy? Especially with Jalen Hurts' possible contract coming up. That is an insane number to go ahead and do. And so, as I say on Shark Tank, for that reason, I'm out. I just can't do it. Unless there is some sort of way you can restructure or get out of the contract after this season, it's not worth it. Jay Ajayi was a perfect option because he only cost you like a 4th-round draft pick, and he wasn't on some sort of massive deal. They basically got out of his deal after the 2017 season. Thank you for your Super Bowl contributions, but we don't need you anymore. That's the big fear with getting a running back like Christian McCaffrey. Now, just to kind of put a bow on all of this, Philadelphia does have the money to at least pay him his $8.75 million cap hit this year. They have $10 million in free cap space. So as you look through the list of teams here via overthecap.com, only a couple actually have room currently to go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey. The Browns have room but don't need him. The Raiders have room, but they lost last night. They're 1-4. Do they really need him? Probably not. The Broncos, maybe, but that's a whole sticky situation in Denver right now. Steelers don't need him. I guess you can make the case the Cowboys could, but they have Zeke and Pollard. I think they're fine right there. The Colts don't need him. Atlanta's not in win-now mode. There isn't a lot of options right now for Christian McCaffrey, and hence why Philadelphia's name you might see get popped up here a lot more over the next couple of days and weeks. Here's the final bow on McCaffrey. They trade for him tomorrow, and it's a fair trade, and he promises to restructure his deal. Great. I mean, that makes Philadelphia way more dangerous. Him plus Miles Sanders would be incredible. But if you were to trade for him and give up a high draft pick and then guarantee to pay him through the rest of his contract, which goes for the next couple of years at $19 million a season in cap money, it's not worth it, guys. Trust me. The name is fun to talk about, dreaming about McCaffrey on this roster, but Philadelphia is one of the best rush teams, if not the best rush team in the NFL without him. How much better do you need to be? And Sanders is playing great and is on track for 1,000 yards this year, and you're not paying him even a quarter of what you'd have to pay Christian McCaffrey in 2023. So for those reasons, I am out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get to, of course, the NFL Power Rankings here for Week 5. Philadelphia falls out of the top spot in just 1 second. First, I do want to mention a very interesting article that just kind of flew under the radar via Bleeding Green Nation. The Eagles are consulting with former Denver head coach and former Bear defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, very much considered one of the best defensive minds currently in the National Football League. Michael Kurst has this tweet you see on your screen here. Per source, Vic Fangio is consulting the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we don't know what this means. Nick Sirianni was asked about it back in early training camp in terms of Fangio being there for a couple of days. Just kind of said, we bring guys in and we like to kind of have people around the organization, but consulting the Eagles defense means he's actually putting in legit work. He's basically, a non-employee employee, or like one of those non-government contractors, as they say. I don't work for the government, but I do a lot of work with the government. This is a very interesting situation for a couple of reasons. One, he's definitely helping Jonathan Gannon, and Philadelphia's defense has been great this year, minus a couple of drives against Kyler Murray this past week, but they've been really good, and I think it'll show, especially on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys. But there's also those rumblings of Jonathan Gannon potentially leaving for a head coaching job in the offseason. If that's the case, maybe Philadelphia is gearing up to then bring in Vic Fangio as a replacement, which every Eagle fan I know would be absolutely thrilled with. So this, to me, is a little nugget that's not going to get any sort of poll nationally. You will not see this on SportsCenter. You might not even see this on, like, local Philly talk radio or a local blog website, but Bleeding Green Nation has this, and I think it's a fantastic storyline in terms of showing you why the Eagle defense has gotten a lot better. And I know a lot of people are upset about last weekend in the Arizona Cardinals, but you still only gave up 17 points to Kyler Murray and the loaded Arizona Cardinals, as a lot of people on the show's comment page have been saying. So I'm just saying. All right, again, make sure you guys give the show a thumbs up if you enjoy it. I really appreciate everyone who does that, and be sure to subscribe. I want to quickly wrap things up here by mentioning the Carolina Panthers as a whole. It's kind of a two-part series of our National League story of the day, and then get into the power rankings here. Carolina, it's a tough situation. I went to Baylor. I was there during Matt Rhule's tenure. I was in press conferences and meeting rooms with him, met the guy, really great college football head coach, clearly not a great NFL head coach. He will make $804,000 a week for the next couple of months, or the next, 24 months due to the buyout from the Carolina Panthers, so credit to him for getting the bag. Any college team is going to be lucky to have him, but NFL-wise, it didn't work. Carolina, though, they see the writing on the wall. Like, you see what's going on in Carolina. We're going to get the number 1 overall draft pick. We're going to sell Christian McCaffrey, sell Robbie Anderson. We're going to completely rebuild this franchise from the ground up, and they're going to draft C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. It's just that simple, and it shows you here in the Tankathon draft order that they very much are in play for the number 1 overall pick, because the Raiders are the best 1-4 team in the NFL. They keep losing, but they're a good team. Pittsburgh, they're going to lose a lot of games, but they won't be the number 1 overall draft pick. Same with Detroit. I think it's Carolina, Washington, and Houston, a 3-horse race for these 2-star quarterbacks in the draft this year. Carolina's going to be tanking, and honestly, for good reason. If you get Stroud or Bryce Young, you might be able to turn your franchise around a lot quicker than where they're at right now with Baker Mayfield. Okay, finally, let's go ahead and wrap up with our NFL power rankings via NFL.com. I love these things. I think it's always fun to see where they rank the Eagles among other NFL teams as we finish up our National League story of the day on the Thomas Mott Show. You have a new number 1. Remember last Tuesday, we talked about how Buffalo was 2, Philadelphia was 1. They have changed that, and maybe rightfully so, maybe not. We'll read what they have to say about the Eagles in a second, but Buffalo, they are very good. They're the best team in the AFC, and they showed it again on Sunday when they absolutely waxed the Steelers. Now, there's no TJ Watt, and that's a big factor for the Steelers. They are statistically way worse without him, but Buffalo's a great team. They're one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. Best team in the AFC, fine. But putting them ahead of undefeated Philadelphia, it's interesting, and it shows you how recency bias works in the National Football League. We talk about this all the time. Yesterday's show was a great example. We talked about how Seth Joyner, Jacob Media, former Eagle, talked about, hey, Philadelphia, they didn't look too good against the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to get crushed by the Dallas Cowboys, forgetting that they've looked fantastic in their first 4 games. It's like, you're never going to have a bad game in the National Football League? The same thing goes here. So they say, quote, the Eagles keep answering the bell in different ways. Win a shootout? Check. Blow a team on the field? Check. Rally from multiple scores down? Check. Win a close one in a hostile environment? Got that too. Sunday's 2017 triumph at Arizona came with a dollop of good fortune. Kyler Murray's premature slide short of the first down marker set an up but ugly miss by a temporary kicker to close the game. But you tend to get these kind of breaks when things are going good. Every win isn't easy, Jalen Hurts said. Personally, I have mixed emotions about the game itself, but we found a way. The Eagles are 5-0 for the 3rd time in franchise history, end quote, since 2004 in that McNabb team. So, essentially what they're doing at this power ranking is saying, yeah, Philadelphia's undefeated, but you didn't blow out the Cardinals. And so, for those reasons, we have to bring you back down to number 2. Now, in the long run, do power rankings matter? No, because in the end, it doesn't matter who's power ranked higher. It matters who actually wins playoff games, divisions, Super Bowls. That's what we focus on. But it is fun to see how one bad game where you win a close one in the 4th quarter against a pesky football team can actually knock you down instead of elevate you. When, as we saw on our Friday reaction day, essentially everyone was ripping the Eagles because they hadn't had any sort of pressure in the 4th quarter or any sort of adversity, and then you get it and they still knock you for it. So it's how it works. Come on, guys. That's how it works in the National Football League and how it works in the national media. But I think it's going to be a fascinating week here. I wanted to kind of take the thought away from the Dallas Cowboys. We go back to Philadelphia as we ended today's show. It's going to be Dallas heavy. And I was at the gym this morning, and Get Up was all about Dallas and Dak versus Jalen Hurts and Philadelphia versus Dallas and blah, 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 blah. But it's fun to take a break from that a little bit, give you a breather, and then, of course, on the next couple of shows here, the next couple of days, we're going to dive back into everything going on leading up to that, Eagles' health on the offensive line. We're going to get an update on that later this afternoon, and hopefully getting Philadelphia set for a big win against Dallas, because then maybe you're going to get some full respect from everybody universally, but I don't know. Doesn't happen always in the National Football League. All right, that's all the time we have for on this edition of the Thomas Mott Show. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you guys want to hit that thumbs up button for the show, I'd appreciate that. We will see you guys in the next one. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been Thomas Mott Show.